Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another WG CompSci production, game design 1 or 2 video. This video is designed to walk you through how to go from scene to scene, how to go from the start screen to level 1, and maybe if your character were to die or some criteria is met in which the game is over, how do you go to a game over screen? Unity refers to all of this as scene management. So one of the things we need to have set up, or one of the ways at least I do it, is I make sure that I have a scene for each part of the game. So I have a start screen. If I go and I click on it, this is just a real quick start screen that I threw together. You can make your own. You can borrow one from the web, but just keep in mind if you are going to commercially try to sell or promote your game, it needs to be all your own artwork to avoid copyright infringement. So this is just one I put together. Of course, I'm stealing Mario-esque or Mario concept, so I would never sell this game, but for educational purposes, this is start screen will work. Typically, a start screen is going to have a title and maybe directions for how to get started or what key or keys to press to get started. I have a game over scene here that's blank so that we can take a look at how I would put one of these together. So I actually went through and kind of went online and found a game over screenshot from an existing Mario game. These screenshots can be made, this artwork can be made in Adobe Illustrator. If you have the Adobe suite, it can be made with Inkscape or GIMP if you're using open source software. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to take an existing image and stretch it to fit the existing camera, or you could take the camera and change its width and height and dimensions in order to fit your artwork. Just depends on whether or not your artwork will look pixelated or stretched if you stretch to fit the existing camera. Okay, so there I have my artwork on that scene. I'm just going to save it, file, save scene, and now that scene is set up. Not script-wise, but at least the artwork is right. If I go and I look at start screen, it's ready to go. I've got a game over, it's ready to go now. I have pause in there for down the road if we want to take a look at that, but that might be another video because pausing requires you to know what exact game state you need to go to and from. In my folders, I've set up levels 1, 2, and 3 so I can easily go back and find my level. So, in order to tell Unity when the game is built what scenes to load in what order, you need to go up to the File menu and click on Build Settings. File Build Settings. And the Build Settings list is where you can go through and state what scenes are going to load in what order, just like we talked about. It already has my start screen up here at the top. If you do not see your scenes, what we need to do is click on our folder and we can drag and drop them straight from the scenes folder right in here. Again, this is a very small game just for tutorial purposes. So now I have start scene, level 1, game over. I recommend naming your scene something very specific like start scene and game over, or level 1 scene, just so that it's easy for you to know which scenes are which. And also maybe put together some kind of a flow chart that shows the relationship of different scenes or different levels in your game, in case yours is not just linear, scene level 1 to level 2, maybe you can go backwards and forwards and there's 10 doors that take you to different areas or skip ahead or warp or whatever. We develop all of ours just for PC, Mac, and Linux, but if you're doing it for a different platform, you do have the ability to change that here. We're not actually going to choose to build and run right now, but if you were getting ready to finalize your game or at least make a beta version of an alpha level, this is where you would build it to see if there are any compile errors. Build and run will not only build it, but then also launch it on your computer or your device so that you can actually see it. Okay, so if you're finished setting up your scenes, there is no file save button here. We just click on X to cancel out. And now we have at least our scenes put in order. The next step is actually putting together some kind of a script that will tell Unity how to go from one scene to the next. If I were to build my game right now and just look at it, it should take me just to my start screen. It might take a second to build your game depending on how complex it is. So it's going to build it for me really quickly here. Just sit here and wait. Okay, now that I've got the game built, Unity will actually make a Windows executable file. My game is called Mario 1, so I just called it Mario1.exe. And if I launch it, Unity then will ask me, what resolution do you want? Do you have any input devices that you want to hook up or change the properties for? Do you want to be windowed or full screen? I'll just press play here so you can see. Unity starts off, and what does it do? It goes to the first item in your build settings, which is my start screen. Everything, besides looking a little pixelated, everything looks great, but I'm pressing keys on my keyboard, and I wanted to be able to make it to where it would automatically go to level 1. You saw I pressed a key, I just happened to guess, and it was enter, and it took me there. So how do you actually go from the start screen to level 1 by pressing enter or any other key? Well, let me go back over to Unity here, close out my game, and we'll walk you through that. I made a scripts file, a C# script file called start script. Call these scripts whatever you want. I tend to break mine down for my beginners into separate files so that it's not quite so complex, but you could make one C# script that would handle all of your scene management going from one scene to the other. Well, let's take a look and see what I have here. Very first thing you need to type that's not built in by default for C# script files for Unity is adding the scene management class. So that's using UnityEngine.SceneManagement. I didn't use anything in my start function, but in my update function, this is where I'm actually putting the critically important logic for how do you go from scene to scene. So I put in an if function that says if they press the return key, which even on if you're using a PC, you still have to say return unless you change that in your input settings. On a Mac keyboard, it is return, but regardless if it's Windows or Mac, you still put in return if you mean the enter key. And then we use the scene manager class that we just imported from above to say scene manager.load scene, and then which scene do you want to load. Well, you're not supposed to just guess this part or type whatever you want. That part is really important, and it's based off of what is the actual name of the scenes that are listed right here in the list. So as I tell my students, if you make a spelling error, you need to be consistently bad at spelling because it's going to reference exactly the way you typed it here. So to go from start screen to level 1, I have to specifically say level 1, and that's what I've got there, no space, just like a listing. It's up to you. This part's optional, whether or not you want any text to show up on the screen. Since this is my start screen, I made the words press enter show up on the screen so that I could actually know what key to press. So I saved that script. I go back into Unity, and on my start scene, switch over to it. On my start scene, I just pick the background artwork and I drag and drop my start screen script. If I test it now and I look at my start screen, if I press enter, the far right enter key, if you have a wide keyboard, it automatically took me to level 1. The same thing would be true if you want to go over to game over screen. You have to kind of decide what's the criteria. A lot of my students will actually go into their health scripts. If you have a health script set up, and in there you would actually say that if their health is less than or equal to 0, then it would take them to a game over screen. So right here I have if HP is less than or equal to 0, I could say in here scene manager dot load scene and say take me to my game over. Okay, and again I have to make sure that on all of these scripts I take the time to import the actual name of the library of the class that holds that logic. So now I make it to where, if my character dies, then take me to the game over screen. If you have special warp areas, you can even make it to where if they collide with a certain door, then scene manager.load scene take them to the scene. You could have hidden functions in your scenes where if they press a certain key on the keyboard or the gamepad, then it takes them to the scene. So this line right here does all of the magic, takes you to whatever scene is being triggered, either by an if or by button pressing or simply time. Something else we've done is, what happens if they collect a certain number of coins. Maybe if coins are greater than 100, then take them to scene 2. So all of it's done the same way using this scene manager.load scene. Okay, that covers how to go from the start screen to level 1 and level 1 to game over. Feel free to go back and pause and take a look at this, but really it is straightforward and that's simple.